Hi, I'm Steve Phillips from Fox Rage. Now, if you're a fan of the brand, which as you're watching this video, I guess you are, you'll know that we've got plenty of different rod ranges available under our Fox Rage brand. So they start off at the top with the TI Pro, go down to the Terminator. You've got the Prism X's. We've just introduced also the Street Fighter range of rods. Our newest addition to these ranges is on the back of a very popular family of rods, and that's the new range of Warrior rods that we've just introduced. Now, if you know the Warrior rods, you know that they're about two things, and that is a good quality rod, but and the second thing, the most important thing, is at a very good price point. So it is, in terms of price, it's at the bottom end of what we offer, but they still offer very good value for money. So, you know, you're not buying terrible rods, you're buying good value for money rods. So what we thought we'd do today is get out into the Staffordshire countryside and onto Patshill Park fishery, plenty of pike and perch about, fish with these rods and have a chat through exactly what they offer, what they're all about and what you can expect from them. So let's have a look and see what they can do. So the big question now is, what does this new range of Warrior rods offer in terms of models? Well, it can be easily broken down into two sets. You've got your casting rods, so that's with bait caster reels, so they have the grip and everything. There's three of those models, and then there's spinning rods, and then there's quite a lot more of those. So we'll take a look at each one, each category separately, get a closer look at them, see what they offer. So we'll take a closer look at the casting rods in the new Warrior range. And I've been fishing this morning with the pike cast, which is perfect, as you'd expect, for pike fishing. This offers a rod of 20 to 80 grams, so it's not super heavy. It's not like up to 100 gram range, but that weight casting range will offer you great options. I mean, you can cast with within the Rage lure range. You've got most of the replicants you can fish on this. You've got pro shads you can fish with this. You can fish a lot of salmos, you know, the sliders, the bigger hornets and everything. So you'll have a really good range of lure weights that you can use on this. So if you're in the market for a good value pike fishing rod for lures with a casting setup, here this is one of the Lew's Super Duty 300 reels, fits on it perfectly, works with it really well, then this is what you should be looking at. The finish on it is wonderful. The EVA handles feel really nice when you're casting. Obviously with the casting reel, it's a lot about balance on these when you're casting big lures about, but it's also how they load up and how they feel on the cast, and also the sensitivity you want on the feedback when you're fishing with these big lures as well. It's not just, you don't just want a broom handle, and this fits the bill perfectly. So that's the pike cast, lovely rod, but that's in the context of it being exceptional value for money. So let's move on from the pike cast rod. Another big lure rod is the jerk. Now this one comes in at again the same 30 to 80 grams, but as you'll see it's quite a lot shorter. I mean, it's probably about a foot shorter than the pike cast. So the pike cast comes in at 225 centimeters. This is 180 centimeters, so it's a very short rod, but that's for a very good reason. Get your bait caster on there, smash it out, and the way you fish a jerk bait is by jerking it back. That's what the name comes from. So you want that short rod. You can put it down if you're over the side of the boat and jerk it downwards, and that shortened length gives you that the action that you need. You don't need a massive length on these rods. Again, it's got the same finish to it, beautifully finished. It's not over the top. I mean, for with a lot of cheap rods, they can either look too plain or they can look too garish. Normally they can look too garish, but this straddles that quite nicely. You've got a lovely checkered finish, red whipping on there. They're very capable, great ceramic inserts. They're exactly what you need. Don't fool yourself, you do get what you pay for in terms of the top end rods and the bottom end rods, and if you're after a rod that's beautiful to use and a piece of art, go for the top end TI Pros or Terminators. But if you're after something that offers you a real good workhorse that won't let you down for the money you're going to pay at the bottom end, this is where the Warrior is in a league of its own, really. So anyway, that's the jerk casting rod. And the third casting rod is the very versatile Zander cast rod, Zander casting. So this is a 10 to 30 gram casting range. So it's not in your finesse range, but it's in a medium casting range of lures. So you know, if you're fishing Zander Pros or big slick shads, or even working bigger rattling hornets and that kind of thing, or pro shads, you know, your 14 centimeter pro shad with a 15 gram corkscrew jig head would be perfect for this rod. Because remember, you're not just taking into consideration the grammage on your jig head, you're taking into consideration the overall weight of your lure. Again, beautifully finished. It's got a very nice balanced action on it. It's a good length. It's 210 centimeters long, but what it offers is a versatility because of that casting range and because of its length. So if you were after a casting rod that you could go after bigger perch on, or even on a light pike setup, or as the name suggests, Zander fishing. So if you're say in this country over on Rutland or Graffham, or down the canals, or on the River Severn, or on the Trent, or over on the Fens, wherever you're going to get decent sized Zander, this would be a great option for a casting style rod for Zander fishing. But also, like I said, it will cover lots of other situations. Again, you know, for under £50, what is there not to like about this rod? You know, beautifully finished, designed for purpose, so it's, you know, it's been thought about properly, but for a price tag that is just incredible, really. So if you're after a versatile casting rod that says it's for Zander, which it is, but you know, you can use it for other species as well. If you're after one of these for Christmas, or for to buy for your own fishing, get your grandma to buy it for you for Christmas. If you're just getting into fishing, want to try baitcaster work for the first time, take a close look at this, and I'm sure you'll be very impressed, and you'll be on your Christmas list, definitely. So the bulk of the rods in the new Warrior range come under the spinning side of things. So that's with your standard fixed spool reel. Now we're going to start looking at those from the bottom end casting weight rise. So I've been fishing today with the new Warrior Ultralight rod. Now this is, as you'd expect, the lightest rod in the range. It's got a 2 to 8 gram casting capacity, which is perfect for all our kind of ultralight lures, you know, 2-3 gram head with a little micro spiky or a micro fry, or even I'm fishing today with one of the smaller critter lures on a little chub head. And it handles it wonderfully. What you're after on these rods is just the feedback. What they're designed for, what you want them to be doing when they're designed for, is if you're putting a lure out and just twitching it along the bottom, you want that automatic feedback through the braid. And this rod through the blank is wonderful. It's quite surprising, actually. I didn't expect it to be that delicate and that sensitive, because, you know, for a rod of this money, £45, you kind of expect them to be a bit cumbersome. You have to work for it. You maybe have to feel the braid to get that feedback, but not with this one. It's really, really nice and sensitive to use. Any kind of little bite from the perch you can feel straight away that little knocking. You know, on some cheap rods I've used in the past, they've not been as good as this by any means. So yeah, very, very impressive. This kind of rod, if you're in the market for it, you're looking for light perch fishing, like Zander fishing on the canals. It's not a pike rod, but I've got a suspicion if you hooked a pike on this, you'd still be able to deal with it, because it's got quite a lot of backbone down the blank. You know, the second half of the blank is more than powerful enough to tame fish that you accidentally catch on your light setup. So a really, really quality rod for the money. It's, like I say, surprised me how good it is. So I think we'll sell lots and lots of these, and if you're in the market for a light lure rod at a certain price point, definitely take a look at these and you will not be disappointed. So moving up from the lightest in the Warrior range, the Ultralight, we're going up to the next lightest, which is the Light Spin. Now the first thing to notice about these rods, if you look at the Ultralight, you've got your abbreviated handle, so you've got the blank that runs through with the EVA on either side. Once you get heavier than that in the spinning, you've got a solid handle. Now, you know, some people like abbreviated, some people like solid handles, but to me these just feel really nice. The EVA is nice and soft, nice, especially on a cold day like today. So weight rise, this one goes up a little bit from 2 to 8 gram. This is a 5 to 15 gram rod, so only slightly heavier. You can still use your kind of light stuff, but it's just another step up. So this would be good again for the canals if you want to use a slightly heavier lure, slightly bigger lure. Maybe you're going from one of our, like a micro spiky up to a small one of our small spikies still with a 2 gram jig head or something like that, but slightly bigger hook and overall a slightly heavier weight with that extra rubber involved. So like the ultralight rod, it still gives you that lovely sensitivity. The blank is a little bit thicker, obviously, because it needs to be for the power, but it's still got that really nice sensitivity when you're fishing with it. Now, the other thing to mention about the light spin is the fact that it comes in 2 different lengths. So the reason you'd have 2 different lengths is based on other than people's personal preferences, because that comes into it, but it depends on venues. So if you're fishing on a canal, you don't have to cast too far to the far bank, or you're fishing a narrow river, or you're fishing a small still water, you go for the shorter one because you don't need that casting power to get your lure to the far bank or whatever. But if you're fishing a big river, or you're fishing a larger still water, or even if you're up north and you're fishing one of the bigger canals, you might want the longer rod because it will give you that extra leverage to cast the lighter lures a little bit further, as long as you've got balanced tackle, the right braid and all that kind of stuff. So you know, it offers you good options in terms of the length. It's also a good all-round rod if you want to do lighter fishing, but also you're expecting to catch maybe the odd pike or slightly bigger perch, and you want that extra power to set the hooks and to bring the fish to the net. So if you're in the market for something like this, again, it's still within the £50 budget of the Warrior range. It's a perfect one for you to take a look at, get out on the bank fishing with, and catch plenty of fish with. So the next step up within the Warrior range on the spinning side of things for the weight is the medium spin. Now, the medium spin I've been using a lot today, chasing the pike. The reason for that is, even though it says medium on it, it's a really good rod for our 14cm pro shads, with a little harness underneath, and I've got a 5 gram corkscrew jig head in there. So the overall weight, you're probably looking about 20-25 grams, I reckon, in total. So it sits right in the 15 to 40 gram casting weight range that this rod offers. Now, in terms of, again, I keep saying it, but in terms of sensitivity and feedback, which is exactly what you're after from a good lure rod, this has got it in spades. For a value for money rod, again, I'm quite surprised just how good it is. The blank's heavier than the other two, again, because you need the more powerful blank for casting and for playing fish, but it's still got a lovely tippy action. You can feel the lure working, or more importantly, you can feel it when it's not working, so you're not wasting your time dragging back a load of weed on a retrieve. It's not a dulled down experience as you might get from some budget rods. It actually feeds back really nicely. Like the previous rod, it's got the solid handle, which I actually really like. It fits under your elbow. It's a good length. It fits under your elbow nicely for when you're casting, when you're playing fish and working the lures back. With the 2,500 reel, it's really nicely balanced. You know, you wouldn't want to go to a 3.5 or a 4,000 size with this. It's a medium rod. Even though I'm using it for pike, you don't need to go that heavy. It's just a really nicely balanced rod, and for the money, it offers a hell of a lot of bang for your buck. So the medium spin Warrior rod is a hugely flexible rod because of its casting weight range, but also it offers 3 different lengths. So again, like I said about the other rod, depending on where you're fishing, with the venue you're fishing, and how far you need to cast, you've got lots of options there. So very versatile rod. So now for the big guns. If you're after pike and you're casting big lures out, this is the boy you want, the heavy spin, the Warrior heavy spin. So this comes in 3 different sizes, different lengths, the same as the medium spin. So again, you've got lots of options in terms of the venues you're going to fish and the length options for your casting that you want to do. So, you know, you want to choose which one you want to go for depending on where you're going to fish and what you're going to fish for. But the main thing is, this is a powerhouse of a rod. So this is equivalent of the pike cast in the casting range. It's a 40 to 80 gram casting weight, but I'm sure, having fished with this could fish with a lot heavier. It's a good old, you know, workhorse of a rod. So if you're after a pike rod that you can put through its paces, casting out big lures time after time, and you can just abuse basically. This is the rod you really need to be looking at. And last but not least, in the spinning side of the Warrior range of rods, you've got the drop shot. Now again, this comes in 2 different length versions for where you're fishing. With the drop shot, it makes that length does make a big difference. Normally because you fish with a drop shot rod quite high up to keep that line off the water and have a direct contact with the lead and with the lure. So if you're fishing, I keep coming back to it, but if you're fishing on a canal and you don't need that range and you haven't got the depth of water as well, you go for the shorter version. If you're fishing on a river and it's slightly deeper and you're fishing slightly further out and you're using a heavier weight, I'd go with a longer version because it allows you to pick that line up a lot more off the water and keep a more direct contact. It will allow you to feel those bites and catch more fish, essentially. That's the bottom line. So the drop shot rod is designed for drop shot. If you look, I'll break it down, it's got a very sensitive tip. It actually comes in the packet, in the rod sleeve, sorry, with a tube over the top to protect it, because they are sensitive tips. So don't chuck that away, keep that to protect the tip. But the whole point of that is that it will show you the bites you're getting on the drop shot tactics, and it will catch you more fish. Again, incredible value for money. And I know drop shot fishing is still very popular, especially this time of year when it's very cold. It can catch you a lot more fish than just jigging alone, because you can just put a lure in one spot and almost have it static and just twitch it until those fish that are there but aren't moving around and won't follow a jig or won't follow a swim bait or whatever, all of a sudden they'll just get really annoyed and just hit it. So even if you fish with higher end rods than this and you don't do a lot of drop shot fishing, for 50 quid, pop it in your bag, and if that technique is needed at any point, this can save a day. And for the money, you're not really losing out on much, especially as it offers you, a lot of sophistication, a lot of ability for the money. So we'll just have a quick general overview with the Warrior rods and how they look. Obviously this doesn't catch you any more fish, but you still want to be fishing with a rod that looks nice and makes you feel comfortable, makes you happy to be fishing, So we'll take a look at the cosmetics to start off with. They're in 2 categories of handle. You've got the abbreviated handle and you've got your solid handles. Solid handles are for the heavier spinning rods. So I think this is the only spinning rod that uses a fixed ball that has an abbreviated handle. That's the Ultralight. And that's mainly just to keep the weight down because it's such a finely balanced rod. So on the heavier spinning rods, you've got the solid handle with the EVA. But we'll keep looking at this. The graphics are lovely. There's a matte finish to the blanks. The blanks are actually quite thin. They're quite delicate for a budget rod that these Warriors fall into the category of. The guides, they're not the best quality guides you're ever going to get in the world, but they're not bad. They're robust and they're light enough not to impinge on the performance of the rod. Every single rod in the Warrior range is a 2-piece rod, so they have the little dots there just to make sure when you put the 2 pieces of the 2 blanks together, they match up, because that can make a big difference. If you're misaligned, you'll lose a bit of energy on the cast as the braid has to go sideways. So just to make sure you're fishing efficiently and as well as you can. The reel seats are screw down. Again, they're not high-end reel seats, but they do a good job. They're very solid, they're very robust, and they will look after you even if you abuse these rods when you're out fishing, which I do. I'm terrible for abusing rods, and I don't even think I could break these. They've got all the Rage graphics on there all the way up, so you're fishing with, people know you're fishing with Rage, you're fishing with Rage, so you're fishing with confidence. They are just a really nicely finished rod. Like I said, they won't catch you any more fish, but it will make you feel proud of what you're fishing with. Even though you're on the budget end of the spectrum, you'll still enjoy fishing with these rods.